I'm super excited for today. I just started following Steve, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, and I really, really liked what he was doing for the industry, and I thought, man, this guy would be awesome to have on the podcast. Steven Bousquet, did I say that right?
You did.
Awesome.
You did.
So you're a blue-collar executive at American Landscape and Lawn Science. You are American Landscape and Lawn Science LLC, president there, and you also have the Profit First Academy. Is that right? Green Profit First?
Yes.
Yeah,
Green Profit Academy, yes.
Awesome. And you've been in the industry a long time, but why don't you just tell us your story of how it all began?
So next year in this year actually, I'm still in December there. We're in January. So this year, 2023, is my 40th year in the green industry, owning a lawn and landscape business. And, like many people, I started in high school, I did in college, and I grew the business the way I knew how. You worked hard. That's why I'm the blue collar executive. I have a blue collar background. My family was all blue collar, so you work hard. And I really thought that if as long as I knew how to mow lawns and use the fertilizer, what trucks to buy, and mowers to get, I could have a successful landscape business. But I learned along the way that was only going to get me so far, and that if I really wanted to have a thriving business and was financially successful, I needed to learn more things. So I grew my business, and it got me in a little bit of debt and a little bit of trouble. So I had to learn more about the finances, and that kind of started me on the path to Profit First. And then that's kind of how I hooked up with Christine Eric, and writing, kind of persuaded her to write the Profit First for Lawn Care Landscape Businesses book, because I had worked with her. Profit First had helped me out so much that I was like, we have to get this out to the rest of the green industry. And it was so important because I've been the president of the Connecticut Nursery and Landscape Association, and I've been involved in other, parts of the green industry. And in my opinion, green industry people are the hardest working people I have ever met, next to farmers. And I just, really wanted a product and a way to help people so they didn't have to suffer and go through the pain and struggle that I did. So that's really what Green Profit Academy is there for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And before the call started, you and I were talking, and it seems like I was one of those guys too, but I said if I could go back do one thing over again, I would know my finances first. Like, because most of the guys are, jucking the truck, just going out and mowing lawns, or driving by a lawn and they're saying, oh, that's a $50 lawn, because it looks like it is, but they don't have any clue what goes into actually building it out, like how much it actually costs them to do, right? They don't know their COGS, they don't know their profit, they don't know how much to make for each job, they don't know how to utilize assets, things like that. And I thought, this guy is going to be great to have on the podcast, because everyone should know this from day one. And you and I said, like, you have companies 200,000, 400,000, smaller, bigger, that still don't have a clue. They're just getting lucky, and then at some point it catches up with them. I've been there, you've been there, and we get come up with debt. We're like, well, we don't like this anymore. Like, you gotta pay these bills, and it just all catches up. I've been there myself,
Yeah, and knowing your numbers is the most important thing, but all hell can be the most difficult. So, I was in business for over 20 years before I even kind of understood what a balance sheet was used for. And it was another couple of years that before I understood how to use a balance sheet as a tool. You're talking about COGS. I really wasn't paying attention to gross profit margins for over 20 years. I found out really gross profit margin was everything, and estimating properly is everything. And, I've visited over 40 lawn care landscape businesses, unique businesses, different ones. And one of the things I've noticed is that gross profit margin is really, what drives successful companies, and being aware of your numbers and having good financial reports. And in most small businesses, that's what's lacking, is like valid profit and loss statements and balance sheets.
And, for the average guy that's just out there mowing, they don't know to ask the question. They just bring it to their CP at the end of the year, like, oh, you either get money back or you owe money. They don't know why. Like, where did all my money go? Why do I owe this much money?
Yeah.
At what point did you be like, okay, well, something's got to change here? What made you like dive deep into financials?
So in 2001, I was deep in debt. I had about $250,000 in like unleveraged debt. So it wasn't for trucks. It wasn't for equipment or machinery. It was just like we had been losing about 40 or 50 grand every year as we were growing, and I would just borrow more money. So basically,
At what revenue point was that?
so we were about $1 million.
Perfect. That's about what I figured.
Yeah.
It's that threshold from 800,000 to that 1.5, that black hole, right?
Yeah, exactly. The black hole.
Yeah.
So, and this is 2001. So these are $2001. So that's probably $2 million now, right? I guess. So I was deep in debt. So I had to basically write a letter to my, suppliers. I can't pay you right now. So 9/11 happens. I'm in Connecticut. We're in major deep recession now. Nothing is happening. The whole country's at a standstill. And in the eastern, part of this country, it was even worse. So no business. And then I had to send a letter out to my vendors saying, I will pay you all. I just can't pay you right now. And I mean, as the money came in, I'd pay $25 a week, sometimes 50, everyone got paid, but I knew I had to learn something very different. So I got some coaching. I worked with a guy who's kind of his specialty is saving companies that are where I was at and really bringing them back from the brink. And he set me up with the proper chart of accounts and the proper things to track and how to figure out pricing. And just those basic things was enough to turn the company around. But then as the company was successful and it grew, I still didn't have enough of a financial background. So I said, we had years that were good and years that weren't so good. And I'm like, I have to get some stability to that. So then I started really diving into financials. And my first book, because I'm not an accountant, I do have a degree in economics, but in developmental economics, so not accounting. So I didn't even understand all the terminology. So the first book I got was Accounting for the Number Phobic. And it really went over all the terms of the accounting. So I read that. That was helpful. And then I read Greg Crabtree's
Simple Number.
Great book.
Yep.
Totally changed my understanding of what a balance sheet is and what gross profit margin.
Great book, everyone. We'll put the link to that book in the bio. It's solid. We'll put your book in there too, of course.
Yeah, it's a great book. It's a total great book. But when I tried to practice, it was so complicated I couldn't do it. And I tried to do it on my own for a couple, 3 years, and then I read Profit First, and I was like, okay, this is something I can do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got into Profit First. And then I was doing my own Profit First, and I still wasn't hitting all my targets and my percentages. So then I hired a Profit First professional who was more of a coach and not an accountant. So that's how I ended up working with Christine, because I really need an accountant-based Profit First coach. And then, led to this. But that's kind of my short story. And it was painful. I worked about 20 years during the green season. I worked 7 days a week. Yeah, I worked in the field 5 days a week. I ran sales on Saturday, and Sunday I would do all my estimates and proposals.
Unreal. So to get people that are listening, you're not a small company anymore either. You're one of the bigger companies in the country. You said you do, where are you at right now?
We're $4.7 million.
That's amazing. Good job. So not a lot of companies get that big, but and what I was saying is that when we got you on here, the reason that we met, and because I saw the Profit First thing, I was like, well, what's going on here? So I read Profit First. Like I said, I don't remember exact date, 4, 5, 6 years ago, somewhere in there. And then actually Mike Michalowicz was a speaker at the Service Autopilot Conference 2 years in a row. So I implemented the strategy on my own. I didn't hire a coach like you did. Probably would have been smarter too, because coaches are important. And what happened is that I was setting money aside in a Profit First account, and a business came up for sale in my market. And I was like, well, I have all this money in my Profit First account that I was just putting aside, and I was able to take that money and purchase another company with it. Like, man, this is awesome. We've been doing it ever since. And it all stemmed from Mike Michalowicz and then Profit First model. And then I saw you a few months ago that had the green Profit First. I'm like, well, this is kind of cool. So tell us the back end story about how you got into the Profit First part and how you wrote your first book, like you told me before we got on the call.
Sure. So the first Mike Michalowicz book I read was Pumpkin Plan.
Yep.
And that's kind of a marketing book and everything. And so then I read Profit First, and I was like, oh, I can do this. This was kind of like Greg Crabtree's simple version, and I could do this. Okay. But one of the things, John Jantz, he wrote a book called Duct Tape Marketing. And he had put a post on about, being predictably profitable, knowing what your profit's going to be before the year even starts. And that was so intriguing to me. So with Profit First, I was like, well, what is even profit? And they're like, well, that's what, instead of that's what's left over, that's what you're going to take first for owning the business and, for putting all your sweat equity into it. So that was intriguing. And then the predictability of the profitability of the company is really important. And then I had to learn what profit is. So one of the things, as you look at a balance sheet, if you're familiar, with a P&L, if you're familiar with your P&L, it says your net revenue. And a lot of people will think that's profit, but what happens to that net revenue, it gets moved over from the P&L and gets over to the balance sheet. Now there's owner's distribution, there's taxes. And most people don't understand that their equipment payments are coming out of that net revenue.
Yep.
That net income is where your equipment payments come out of. And then also capital improvements. So if you're doing stuff for your shop or your equipment, and then also you have to keep some cash in the business to keep grease the wheels to keep it running. So so what's left over after that is really your profit. And so once you really chop away at it, so to be intentional, you can really be way more intentional taking the profit first instead of getting it spent out and then getting what's left over. So I did my own Profit First. I tried on my own. I was like, okay, it's simple, but this is not as easy as I thought it was going to be. So I hired a coach, and they were more coaching at a kind of big picture. I needed someone that was going to get into my books and help us with what's called target allocation percentages. So those are where you're working to, like, if your profit's at 1%, you want to move it to 5 or 10%. If your salary that you're taking as an owner is 5%, you want to move it to 10%. And the coach is and this is what we do at Green Profit Academy, coach is the one that helps you get to those target allocation percentages. So I hired Christine because she was an accountant. She has a company called Core Growth Strategies to help me. She was so helpful at dialing in all of our taps and getting us in line with Profit First. That was like, it helped me so much. We have to get this out to the green industry. We have to get this out to everyone else. It's going to help a lot of people. So her and I formed Green Profit Academy. We had a partnership with Mike McAllowitz. We paid him for the rights to use the Profit First, and we had to use a certain percentage of, his material. We also had to introduce our own material into the book. So I was the contributing industry expert, and Christine was the author of the book, Profit First for Lawn Care Landscape Businesses.
That's awesome. Where can people find your book?
So the book is on Amazon.
Cool.
And we can pop a link in there, Amazon. And it was the best-selling accounting book last year for a little over a month after we launched it. And it's so it's on any of the majors, but Amazon is really the easiest place to find it. So it's in paperback. It's you can buy it. Also, it's on audio.
Perfect.
So Christine Era, she did the audiobook. That's available on Amazon and in Apple, on Audible and Apple.
Cool. So what services does your company do currently?
So our Green Profit Academy, we provide small group coaching, which is really surrounding Profit First, getting your target allocation percentages dialed in, also moving your company in the direction you want to go. So we have some clients that are trying to double the size of their business. We have other clients that are trying to just stay about the same, but become more profitable. So we work in their goals. In the small group coaching, we meet monthly for 2 hours, and it's 3 people in the small group, and me and Christine are in that. And then once a month, you get to bring, depending on the topic, you get to bring your team to what we call mastery meeting. And so 1 month it'll be on accounting. So your accountant or bookkeeper or your office manager will be there. Another month we'll have it on team building, because we do leadership training also. And that will be surrounding like the Clifton Strength Assessment, getting your team to like become aware of their strengths and really aim them. And then we have our leadership training, which has so far been our most successful course. And that is taking the owner of the company and their emerging leader or their right-hand person's emerging leader and getting them to identify their mission, vision, and purpose and their immutable laws. The owner develops that, and then having their emerging leaders support that mission, vision, and purpose and immutable laws by using the emerging leader's strengths and really identifying what those are and moving forward. And that we meet monthly on.
Why do you think that the leadership one has been the most, the best so far? What's your thoughts on that?
So, because as owners, we don't have time to train. We don't have time to train and schedule out, block that time to be really intentional about training our emerging leaders and the growth. So, it's hard work to do that mission, vision, and purpose work. And it's hard work to get the owners to sit down and work through that. But as they're going through it, they have to really figure out what that mission, vision, and purpose is and how it's meaningful and impactful. And then handing that over to the leaders of the company and saying, guys, this is what we stand for. This is what we're about. It makes it more mission driven and focused. But the reason I think it's been so popular is because owners don't have the time, and they are just always thinking about moving forward and getting stuff done and slowing down to train their guys. And the other thing, I even have my take, even though we're teaching leadership, my own team and my landscape company, they do leadership development out. I'm not teaching it. Someone else teaches it because they worked here. And when they hear me talk, it's me. Wow. It's lost talk. Well, somebody else can say something and it's a totally different thing. So, when we're doing the training, it's the leaders are not with the owners. So they're kind of in a safe space. We're really recognizing their strengths and helping them aim their personal strengths to support that mission, vision, and purpose. And most companies, their teams don't know what the owner's mission, vision, and purpose are.
Yeah, we just we do a yearly offsite. We follow Attraction US model. And my stepbrother and my best friend got into a business together a couple of years ago. And I did the same thing with him yesterday, sent him the same vision traction organizer. Like, you can start writing down their mission statement and figuring out their niche. Like, trying to figure out what they want to do with this thing, because they're kind of getting burnt out already. And they're only in year 2. But you have to have a bigger purpose than just money, right?
Right.
Because if it's just money, you're going to burn out fast. And they got to figure out how to be, to grow the business so they're not doing the work all the time themselves. Now, right. So is that a lot of the things, like in your coaching program, is it typically smaller companies, larger companies, or all over the board?
So our typical company is between $2.5 to $5 million.
Okay, cool.
That's our typical company. We do have a peer group that we're starting in 2023 for companies that are under $1 million, and it's kind of like the march toward $1 million. And really, that's a monthly meetup, and it's just basically about let's set up a chart of accounts. Kind of like you were saying, that one thing that you wish you had done was get your numbers in place. So it's helping people understand getting their chart of accounts set up, understanding the balance sheet, and starting their profit first account so they can start making like real decisions based on dollars and not like survival mode thinking or, pricing just on guesstimating.
Yeah, I like that. Where would the first place to go that if someone was looking for help, what would you tell them to do?
So go to Green Profit Academy. We have a instant assessment they can take that kind of lines up where they are, what their percentages are, where like how much they're putting for their taxes, their profit, their operating expenses, owner's salary. If they take that, then after someone takes that, I usually set a call up with them just to review it and to kind of make sure that they, they're aware of everything that's going on in the assessment.
And do you help them set up a profit first account and how much percentage that they're going to pass on based on the size of the company they are?
Yeah. So we've developed, this is in the book, it's chapter 8. It's called the Scalable Growth Model. And Christine and I worked hard on this. And we have the Scalable Growth Model. We developed like at each size stage, $1 million and under, $1 million and $2 million. And it goes up at each size business, what your percentages should be. and like what's the minimum you can accept, but what's the target allocation percentage that you want to work towards.
That's cool. Do you, I know I mentioned the black hole earlier, but do you typically see a black hole, and which, I know you do, but then which revenue mark do you usually see it at in our industry?
Yeah, so people get stuck. We talked about this, like I got in trouble, in 2001 around the $1 million mark. Some $1 million is kind of where we see they just don't have the systems and the finances.
Yep.
And then guys get stuck about $1.5 million. And then when they hit about 2.2, it seems to be about every $500,000 is a point where, because they're going to add more people and add, more crews.
Yep.
They have to sell more stuff. So under $1 million, and then $1.5 million to $2 million is the most common. But then at between 2 and 3 million is really one of the most dangerous, because they're adding overhead and they're adding, shop space, they're adding office space. So if the profitability is not between 2 and 3 million, it's not there between that stage, then they have to usually go backwards and slow down. But if you can keep the profitability up between $2 and $3 million, they can work quickly through that stage and get above the 3 million. And then in that 3.5 million, it's kind of a sweet spot where there's enough money to cover all the salaries for the additional people in the office space and the shop space. And can't also have money to train and teach people.
Yeah, that 3.5 is kind of like the 700 to 800. Like you don't have a whole, like at 700, 800, you don't have a whole lot of overhead. It's probably you and a couple guys in a truck. And I find that, the companies that we work with are super profitable around the 800,000. So
Yeah.
Have, 20 to 40% profit because they have no overhead. But as soon as they go jump past like that million, that's when they're like, oh, they're at office managers and operations managers, and they don't know how to pay for them. And that's where they start to struggle. So
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. We did a lot of research and ran a lot of numbers to make sure in that scalable growth model that those numbers were correct.
Yeah.
And interviewed a lot of different companies and looked at a lot of financials to make sure that that was what we were printing on that in that chapter was a true story. So
I love that. And what I like about what you're doing is that you can put one company against another company in the same industry, same revenue, and say, hey, they're doing it this way and this way. These are where the numbers where you should be at.
yes. Yeah.
And where do you see the good where do you see bad companies for net? Where do you see the good companies for net? Where do you see the great companies for net in our industry?
So I like to focus on gross profit margins because then we can manage the expenses after that.
Okay.
So when I see anybody at below 45, I call 40% gross profit margins a smoke alarm. And 35% gross profit margin is like the fire alarm. I mean, you are burning. And so anything under 45% is really kind of a dangerous spot to operate, because if you're only operating at a 45% gross profit margin and you're trying to get 15% net, that only gives you 30% to cover all of your overhead.
Right.
So there's just not enough money there. So we like to see 60% gross profit margin. And that typically enables you to take that, 15% net. It's hard to take and I'm talking net for the company, not owner's salary. So we like to see between a 20 and 24% like net for the company, including owner's salary. But the gross profit margin has to be there first to get that. It's kind of like, that's the horse that pulls the cart.
That was going to be my analogy. It was funny you said that. But where do you see the really, really good, super profitable companies at?
So when they get it dialed in, there's all the ratios. Like, so a super profitable company would be at like 30% of their revenue is total labor. That includes for the office, for the field, for everybody. So a lot of times you can have low field labor, but too much office. You can have too much field labor and not enough office. So there's efficiencies. Like one thing that we learned in my lawn application business was, we don't have the technicians. We want them teching all the time. They don't do call aheads. They don't put their signs together. They don't do their own routing. They don't, we want them doing production.
Yep.
So then our office overhead's a little higher, but our field production is higher. So it's easier for me to find good lawn techs than lawn techs that want to talk on the phone to customers and treat lawn.
Agreed.
So I would say, if they can get in that once you hit 65% gross profit margin, that's when you're getting into that 24 to 30% net. And that's a company that's really dialed in on their niche with the services they're offering. So one of the things, most dangerous thing I fell for it was try to be everything to everybody. So I was spreading my capital out so thin. We were a gardening business, a mowing business, a landscape install business, lawn application, flowers, driveway sealant, parking lot sweeping, snow plowing. We had all these services. So I was spreading all this capital and talent, so thin. All my money was going out buying all the specialty equipment. 20 years ago, I bought a $10,000 leaf loader. Just so it sat there. We used it for 6 weeks a year to load leaves into a dump truck. How do I pay for that? I didn't know back then. Now, we work with how do we get the return on investment on that piece of equipment before we even buy it? How much do we have to charge for it and things like that? So the gross profit margin at 65 to 70% is pretty much, that's the unicorn. That's somebody that's really paying attention to their services and how they're running every part of their business.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that story, I'd be a very, very wealthy man. Because that's what we all did. Like, we just wanted to do everything to everyone. Snow plowing, landscaping, you name it, we wanted to be everything. And finally gets to the point where, like you said, like, I don't like this very much. And you get rid of the services that aren't super profitable, and you run with the services that are profitable. Do you see, you said you niche down is what you said.
Yeah.
What are those niches that you were talking about specifically?
So it's interesting. The niche question is good because we do lawn applications. I love lawn applications. That's how I think. I love turf. I love plant health care. I love marketing. And that's what you have to be into for lawn care. We have clients and I have friends that are in the business. It doesn't matter specifically that's lawn applications. I have a friend that does 70% gross profit margin on drainage. That's his niche and he does drainage. We have other clients that are doing 65% gross profit margin mowing lawns because they niche, like, this is my client and this is who we work for. And we have one client that focuses on like mostly high-end residential is doing 65% gross profit margin. And another client that he focuses on huge industrial stuff. So airports, power plants, and he's doing it. So it kind of depends on it. As long as you get focused on what you are about and what you do, and all your capital and resource and talent is supporting that, that's what I find is the most key thing.
That's fire, because it doesn't matter which niche, just pick one that you're really good at, that you're passionate about, that can make you good money.
Yeah.
That's incredible. What year did you start this company? The Profit First Academy?
So Green Profit Academy, we started that in 2020 because we started the company to buy the rights to start writing the book, but we launched the book on December 14th of 2021. And then we started coaching in 2022 of February, formally with the small group coaching. Cool. So we've only had the coaching part open for about a year.
That's awesome. And how many people you guys got in there? And how many?
We have over 20 something.
Okay. And how many trying to get to? Is there a cap number?
So the small group coaching, we're building up to 24 companies for that. And so the idea wasn't really to have a large company with hundreds of clients. It was like, how do we have like 24 clients that we're serving fully? Because along with, the small group coaching, we have we're doing the leadership training with them. And so for the small group coaching, the cap is really 24. But for the peer groups that we're starting this year, we're going to be capping that initial group at 12.
Awesome. So for those people who are looking to get in a group, better hurry up because I feel like this one's going to fill up pretty fast. I'm excited for you guys. With your other company, with your landscape company, are you completely out of that?
So I spend about 20 to 30% of my time in the company. So I'm mostly in the financial side and the marketing side. I'm out of the day-to-day. I'm in the part that I love, talking about numbers and the marketing. but I'm out of the day-to-day, the production side, the sales side. So what's interesting, I was thinking about this podcast today. In 2018, I was still selling. I had to sell between 200 to 300 jobs a year, and then I had to also run about 300 to 400 lawn care leads a year. So I was very busy, and that was only 5 years ago, and that's why it was a mindset shift that I had. I worked with Marilee Adams. She wrote a book called "Change Your Questions, Change Your Life," and so that was so impactful. I became certified in that, and I'm the same person. I just had to change my mindset. And so with Green Profit Academy, I'm certified in that. Christine is certified in that too. So we're doing a retreat this February called Mind Your Own Business. And it's really about, your mindset is your business. And, if you have a curiosity, learner path, growth mindset, your business can grow. And there's called the judger path or the judger pit. If you don't have that growth mindset, that's where the stumbling block was. Because we're doing the same services, that we did 5 years ago, but the company has doubled because my mindset had grown. I went from working 6 days a week to working, about 20% in my business and taking 8 weeks of vacation a year. It's the same. I have the same services. I'm doing this. We do the same kind of stuff. It was my own mindset that was not curious enough.
That is awesome. How much has coaching changed your life?
Coaching is everything. I mean, it's so impactful. I love to go to people who are really experts at certain things and have been through it. Like, you've been through a lot. You've been through the ringer. If I ask you something, you're giving me advice based on like reality. So I like working with coaches that have helped me. Dr. Sabrina Starling helped me a lot with my mind shift change. And I went to one of her retreats, and I came home, and my wife was in the kitchen, and I walked in. I hadn't even said anything. She turned around and looked at me, and she said, "You're different."
Amazing.
It was the energy. I hadn't even spoken a word, but it was the energy in my presence of that she had picked up on, and realizing that in this, and that's when I really had a real big mindset change, was taking the time away from my business, learning how to be curious, learning the system of asking questions instead of finding answers, learning how to what if and what else and what's possible and, what do I want? And just asking questions more, it kind of helped me to work through how to move my business forward.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of humility, right?
It does. I mean, it's, you have to kind of put the ego aside. And for me, I was the hero of my company for 30 years. And, to not be the hero, I had a codependency on my business because it always needed me. I was always the hero. So I went away to Finland this year in August into September for 3 weeks. And I did not get one call from my landscape company. And so my ego was like, it doesn't need me. They don't need me. Which is really what we're working for. But it's a little bit of an ego hit that, my Superman cape, I didn't have to put it on one time.
I like it. You brought up something super interesting that I want to pick your brain on. You said that you would have to go sell on Saturdays and run your leads on Sundays. But then you also said you had to sell about 200 to 300 jobs per year, right?
Yes.
That was, I'm assuming, landscape design work.
So at that point, I was out of the field. But for about 20 years, how I would run my business, I would work in the field 5 days a week. Saturday, I would go do my sales appointment. Sunday, I would do my estimates and my drawings and everything. And 5 years ago, when I was doing my landscape, I would sell landscape design, mostly the plantings. I had someone that did the hardscape stuff, and then I would do lawn care sales. So I would run 2 to 3 landscape estimates a day, and then fit in the lawn science estimates in between that. So it was busy. So we've done over 5,000 landscape jobs over the past 40 years. So we have a lot of consistent, our average client has bought 4 jobs from us over the last 12 years. So I got a lot of the legacy clients I had worked with. So in the selling cycle, they're already well down that. I'm really meeting with them. What do they want? Drawing it up, giving them a price. It's a little different that I wasn't handling all the new sales.
Right on. What's your revenue split of your company from design build to applications?
So we do $1 million in design build, and then we do 3.7, 3.6 in lawn care and 100,000 in snow. So again, we just plow snow for our clients that we've been plowing snow for 30 years.
Do you guys use plows, bobcats? Like, do you use your landscaping equipment for the plowing, or how do you guys handle that?
So we run 6 trucks for plowing, and so we run 4 550s for that. So, but we have one whole fleet for the lawn applications that there's no plows on, and we have I think we have 26 trucks. So 20 trucks don't plow, or 6 trucks do.
What does your setup for your lawn applications look like? Is it as a 550 version 2 with a tanker truck, or you guys granular? What do you guys do?
So our an NQR is our Isuzu. It's like 17.9 GVW with a 12-foot bed, and then we have custom carriers that go in the back for the Z sprays. We have one non-Z spray right now. We run most Z sprays, so we have these carriers so there's no trailers. The Z spray goes on and off, super simple. And we run granular on rounds 1, 3, and 5. And then on rounds 2 and 4, we're doing liquid. So we'll run 6 or 7 tank trucks, and then which we get the tanks from Gregson Clark. You can take them on and off. Yep. And then we'll run
how many
3 or 4.
That was like 400, 500.
So we'll run, our favorite setup is a 300-gallon up front with a 200-gallon and then 2 100.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's kind of our favorite. We do have some that are 2 200s and 2 100s, but the one that we kind of settled on, that 300-gallon, is the 3 200 and then the 2 100s gives us enough to get through the day. And then we have guys that do Z sprays, so they're spreading and spraying on the big properties.
With snow plowing, is snow plowing part of your budget, or is that just like extra revenue, or do you depend on that revenue?
So I mean, it's about $100,000 to $120,000 a year because we're doing like 4 condos and 2 corporate places that we've had forever, and they're all the condos all pay by the season, and then the other 2 corporate people pay per push, but they're like zero. We're salting up there all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not like we don't actually need all 6 trucks. You can do all those with the 3 trucks, but we used to have twice as much snow, but it's so unpredictable. Beats up it's really just cash flow. Yep. It's hard to make money. You either have to have a lot of it, snow, or, we just don't have enough consistent snow.
Same here. So what do you do with the rest of your guys come the wintertime?
So we're very fortunate in the state of Connecticut. There's a very kind of generous unemployment. So our techs will work typically 50 hours a week from mid-March until the first full week of December, and then they get laid off for that period of time. So between the overtime they make and the unemployment, they're pretty set up.
That's cool. Do you guys, because like then in Connecticut, does like the longer that they're laid off, does your interest rate to the state unemployment go up? And what is the max rate out there?
So our max rate is 7.5%. It might be 7.9 now. So we're paying the max rate on the labor. We do keep, the managers stay on, the office staff stays on. And it's just really the field guys. And they kind of look forward to it.
Yeah,
it's a hard job. You know what? And I tell my office staff, we work hard in the office. What my lawn techs and what my kid guys are doing, that's hard work.
Sure, the physical labor.
And I still go out in the field 2 weeks a year. I try to work in the field just so I see, are we supporting our team? Do they have the right equipment? Do we have the right systems? What can we make easier, more efficient? Are customers getting the products they're expecting? So I run into customers and they don't know I'm the owner of the company. I just signed my name, Steve, on the slip. But so I'm going out there and it kind of keeps my feet on the ground, realizing that this is hard work.
Yeah. How do you track, like for your systems, how do you track all your fleet and how do you track all your guys and routing?
So we use, it's WorkWave Service Assistant now, but we've been with Real Green since 2008. So we use that for the routing. We are looking at another program. We talked earlier about Service Autopilot, and we really like what they have to offer. So we have the trucks have the tracking in them. So we have a screen in the manager's office. He sees where every truck is and what it's doing. And it also will throw codes. So if a truck throws a code, we know what code it is. And so we do a lot. We do the routing for them. And so we're still a little bit old school. And I think that's why we like Service Pilot when we look to them, because you don't have to be online to get all the information. It will run without having that internet connection. So we run a route book still, and each book has a piece of paper in it that has a picture as a street front view of the house. And it has overhead, because some of our properties are large. So we're not treating the whole property because the yard might be 40,000 feet. We're treating 20. And then it's easier for us to find a yellow cape than it is to find number 42 it might not even be anywhere.
That's interesting, because I purchased a company a few months ago. That's a smaller FERC company, like 800 clients, and they're on Real Green too. And I looked at it, I'm like, why aren't you guys running like mobile apps? Like, well, we can't. I'm like, what do you mean you can't? Like, yeah, we just still use paper. I'm like, yeah, we're not going to do that no more. So we switched them over too. Not because I didn't like Real Green, like I don't care either way. Just I liked that feature of it.
Yeah.
Just having the mobile apps in the trucks, clock in and clock out of jobs, taking pictures and things like that is a massive win for us. Next question. Go ahead.
That's another reason why we like Service Autopilot, because you can take the photos. So right now we're using company cam. So the guys can take the photos and it goes into that client's account. But then it's another asset.
It's another CRM that you're logging in and out of. I agree. At one point, do you stop using them?
Yeah.
I have logins for everything.
Yeah. It's half the core of the day is logging in and out. And so, yeah, it can get little bit redundant. And we're on the eastern side of Connecticut, so we're 72% farm and forested.
Okay. So
we don't have internet everywhere.
Right.
It's not uncommon. Like even Sirius radio, you're going to lose it 20 or 30% of the time.
Yeah, same here. Next question. How do you track inventory currently?
So inventory, they do it in QuickBooks, and then they count.
Do you usually pre-buy everything for the year?
Yeah. So how I buy is, there's all the early order stuff that they run into October. This year they ran even all the way through the middle of November. So because we send our first contracts out in December. In Connecticut, you're technically supposed to have a contract. You can't auto renew. So we have to send contracts out, and to do that. So we send contracts out in December. So I need to know my pricing before I send the contracts out. So I negotiate everything in October. And so we're bought pretty much all the way for the whole year, except for some small items by October.
Yeah, I think I saw a video of you sending out some prepayments for the year.
Yeah.
Not too long ago. And I was like, man, I remember doing that years ago, and we have to have the same thing here in Michigan. You have to have an agreement. But we worked with the state very closely here. And I told you a bit, where I feel like we're 10 years behind. But we actually worked with the state really close, 2 years ago. And they let us build out a form, basically, estimate template inside Service Autopilot, where we could actually send them all out as an email, as an estimate template with all the verbiage that we needed. And they said, yeah, that would actually work here.
Yeah.
So I remember the days of stacks of paper, just sending them out, It's not any faster. It just still takes a lot of time, but you're not using stamps and envelopes and all that stuff.
I would love to get to that point where we're not. New England is old school kind of, especially our community. They call us barnacles because we don't move too far.
Yeah.
So I would love to get to the point where we're just emailing all that out. It would make it so much simpler than running it through the folding machine and putting in the envelopes and mailing it out, and people mail it back. Oh, it feels so archaic. It really does, even to me.
It's funny because you said that the envelope folder, right? And our paper folder, I didn't even know what one of those were until I went down to one of the conferences, like SA1, SA2, something like that, Service Autopilot conference. Someone's like, hey, you need to get this folder thing. I'm like, what do you mean? Yeah, they actually fold all the papers for you. Of course, that night I'm online and I'm ordering this folder and I show up and it's like the best thing since sliced bread. That thing was so awesome. So if you guys are still doing prepayments with paper, definitely buy one of those guys.
Oh, that folder is best money spent. And talking about equipment, like one of the other pieces of equipment I really wish I had bought was a forklift. We were using a skid steer. We got a forklift. That was a game changer, adding efficiency, loading pallets. So we go through about 30 tractor-trailer loads of lime a year.
Wow.
And huge amounts of lime. So that's why we had these, 12-foot beds. But loading lime with a skid steer was just really hard. And you can do whatever you want with that forklift.
So with your lime, are you buying in bulk or is it like bags?
So we buy right from the quarry, but we'll make an agreement to buy 25 truckloads a year. And then what we do is by doing that, we get a better price. And then also by doing that, we work with a trucking company. So when they're a little slower or they have downtime, they know when those times are, and we get shipments when that. So it can knock us, $700 to $800 off a truck delivery fee just by working with the trucking company and say, when you're slow, we'll take load.
That's incredible. And so I think that's be a massive win for anyone watching that goes through a lot of lime, because I didn't know that, but we don't go through a lot of lime here. The lime that we do use, we just buy it in pallets,
Yeah.
Does it come in the same form?
Yeah.
Does it come in the same form? Like, does it look the same?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a high calcium limestone because in Connecticut we have so we have it's high calcium because we don't need the magnesium. So we work with the University of Connecticut and they run our soil test and then we send the results, to our customers. And so our average lawn's going to need about 50 pounds of lime, for like maybe 2 years in a row, and then you can cut it back. And it's just a lot of lime to treat. Yeah.
So for your new clients and existing clients, do you do a soil test every year? The first when they only sign up? How do you guys handle that?
So we soil test them the first year when they sign up, and then it's every third year after that.
Oh, well. Is there...
Because it does take time for that lime to, that calcium to really, get integrated into the soil and take effect.
Yeah, I love that. What is the one piece of advice that you would tell a young entrepreneur in the lawn care industry or pest control or whatever? What's the one big piece of advice? I think I know what it's going to be, but what would you tell that guy?
Yeah. And I think you kind of, when you talked about Jonathan earlier, get a mentor who knows what they're doing and get a mentor and a coach. Really don't think that you can figure it all out on your own, and don't think that you're not smart because you can't figure it out. But get a mentor and a coach that can help and guide you. And then obviously know your numbers. Knowing your numbers is going to be, and I'll tell you, because I'm in a number of chambers, it's not just one in landscape businesses that don't know all their numbers. It's most small businesses.
Yeah. But I think I've said this on every podcast so far, but you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You just have to be humble enough to start asking people for questions, asking for help. And once you start asking people for help, whether they're in the industry or not, they'll lead you to someone. And find someone that's in their industry that you emulate, you want to be like, or you want to learn from, and just reach out to them. It's that simple.
Yeah. The curiosity mindset is very common among successful business people. They always have that curiosity mindset instead of the know-it-all, my way or the highway. That, I have a good friend, Sid Sexton, and, he's been growing his company. This guy, I don't know, 10 million or whatever he's doing this year. And he is just always curious. He's just always learning. We have discussions about that. What are you being curious about? What are you going to learn this year? And it leads you to meet other people and different ways of thinking. So,
Sid guy, how old is he?
I think Sid just turned 40.
Okay, cool.
Or 41.
Awesome. He's doing big things. Cool. What's his last name? What's Sid's last name? Remember?
Sid Sexton.
Sexton?
Sexton Landscape. He has a podcast. It's called The Overlap.
I'm writing all down.
Yeah, it's The Overlap. It's how life, business, family, health, how they all overlap. And we don't, you don't segment out your life. everything's connected.
That's cool. I got to hook up with him too. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
He's awesome to talk with.
That's cool. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best place to come find you?
greenprofitacademy.com is really the best way. And I'm sure we're going to put links and everything in this. Yep. And I can be reached at steve@greenprofitacademy.com. You can find us on Facebook. We have a group, Profit First for Lawn Care Landscape Businesses. That's on Facebook. You can just ask me to join that group. And I just started that group this year. And it's interesting. So the season, when things slow down in December, from December 1st until the end of December, the group tripled in size because people were off. They weren't working. Yeah. So
I don't even know how you must have just found me. We must have had like mutual friends or something. I got added to the group. The next thing you know, I'm in there and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool. Interesting. That's we're watching. Like, this guy's sharp and you get him on here. It'll be helpful for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're doing Facebook Lives on that, going over the book and going over questions. So we're doing the Facebook Lives as many Wednesdays as we can, as long as we're available to do it. We're going to do this Facebook Live. It's just good to get questions and talk about.
For sure.
Talk about stuff. And Christine, my partner, she's so passionate about small businesses. And that's kind of what she does. She helps small businesses really grow and thrive by having their numbers correct and, making decisions based on numbers.
I love it. Well, I told you that I would keep you here more than an hour, and it's been about that now. So I'll let you get running, but man, you're a rock star. It's been fun having you. I learned a lot myself, and I appreciate you being here with us.
It was great being here. I appreciate you and your success and how you're also trying to reach out and help the green industry and help small businesses by what you're doing, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, like I said, it was fun, and like I said, I look forward to getting to meet you in person and keep connected with you because you're a sharp cat, and I like that.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out another episode of the Pest Control Millionaire Podcast. If this was valuable to you, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It really makes a big difference for our growth. And if you do need any help growing your business, go ahead and check out pestcontrolmillionaire.com. We have lots of courses up there, from sales to operations. I have some courses there about producing short form content. Plus, we have a mentorship program where you can get one-on-one business coaching from the Pest Control Millionaire himself. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.